Fellow Americans, patriots, warriors of freedom, descendants of those who stormed the beaches of Normandy and defied kings, rise up and heed this battle cry. Remember when President Ronald Reagan thundered in his 1981 inaugural address. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. 1:3, though he spoke of economic woes. Those words ring truer than ever today as we face a bloated, manipulative beast that's gutting our liberties. Our once mighty republic, forged in the fires of revolution against British despotism, is bleeding out under the weight of a monstrous government that has betrayed us all. The U.S. Constitution, that sacred covenant meant to bind the beasts of power and unleash the spirit of liberty, has been mangled into a tool of oppression. Taxes, intended solely to pay the debts and provide for common defense and general welfare of the United States, have morphed into an endless abyss of vagueness and abuse. 3, we've been reduced to indentured serfs, toiling endlessly to feed a ravenous deep state that prints money like counterfeiters, devalues our hard-earned dollars, and squanders our wealth on foreign follies while our homeland crumbles. Their constant manipulation through taxes, regulations, and right-stripping schemes has destroyed this country, turning safe communities into war zones and free citizens into targets. This isn't governance. It's grand larceny. It's a declaration of war on the American dream. And if we don't fight back with the fury of our forefathers, we'll be damned to eternal slavery. No more excuses, no more complacency. It's time to reclaim our birthright with righteous rage. At the core of this outrage burns a taxing and spending clause in Article 1. Section 8, a power meant to be laser-focused, not a slush fund for tyrants. General welfare was never a license for unlimited plunder. The framers designed it as a tight leash on federal excess. 5, before 1913, our government funded itself primarily through tariffs on imported goods and excise taxes on items like alcohol and tobacco, honest revenue streams that didn't directly raid the pockets of everyday Americans, representing a balanced approach tied to commerce rather than personal earnings. 25, 26, 27, but that wasn't enough for the greedy officials and their cronies. Thwarted by constitutional roadblocks, like the Supreme Court's righteous 1895 smackdown in Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust Company, which declared a federal income tax unconstitutional without apportionment among the states, they schemed to bypass the people's will. 04 entered the 16th Amendment in 1913, rammed through not as a tool for the people's good, but as a power grab for self-serving elites and their insatiable interests. This marked the dawn of tax slavery, unleashing a beast that turned free citizens into perpetual cash cows for government gluttony. Not representing we the people, but the bloated appetites of officials lining their pockets and expanding their empires. Yet here we are, drowning in a national debt that has exploded to $38.40 trillion as of December 2025, ballooning by $2.23 trillion in just 1 year. That's a staggering $6.12 billion per day stolen from future generations. 8 politicians in the Federal Reserve print fiat money like madmen, igniting inflation that ravages our savings and jacks up prices on everything from bread to fuel. And who bears the brunt? You, the hardworking American, whose tax revenues swell as your purchasing power shrinks. This vagueness in public purposes screams void for vagueness, a legal hammer that should smash these ambiguous laws for failing to provide fair notice and inviting arbitrary enforcement. 9 courts have dodged applying it to the bloated Internal Revenue Code, but the truth is glaring. The 16th Amendment unleashed federal income taxes without apportionment, overturning sane rulings and paving the way for endless exploitation. President Trump has taken bold steps to curb this tyranny, issuing a cease and desist order to the IRS in January 2025 to protect middle-class families and small businesses from audits and weaponization, while halting the hiring of new federal employees to rein in the agency's overreach. 13, these actions are a start in fighting back against the IRS's invasive powers. But the battle rages on. Worse, our blood money flows overseas in rivers of foreign aid, totaling around $60 billion in FI 2025, funneled through acts like the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, with lax oversight that mocks general welfare for Americans. 0, we're bankrolling endless wars and pet projects in Ukraine, Israel, and beyond while our veterans rot on sidewalks and borders bleed invaders. This isn't aid, it's treasonous theft. We're forced to work just to survive, taxed on wages, sales, and existence itself, with no escape unless we turn criminal or renounce all ownership. That's not liberty, that's lockdown. Like serfs begging for scraps from a feudal lord, we labor or starve, stripped of the freedoms our nation was baptized in blood to secure. Recall the glory days of the early republic, when property was the bedrock of freedom. You owned your land outright, farmed it freely, and bequeathed it unmolested to your heirs. Today, that's a cruel joke. Property taxes, imposed by states and localities at an average effective rate of about 1%, create an ironclad lien on your home. 11 miss a payment, and the government swoops in like vultures to seize what you built with your sweat. You're not an owner. You're a tenant in fee simple, paying eternal rent to the state overlords. And the death tax. Since 1916, federal estate taxes claw at your legacy, upheld in sham cases like Knowlton v. Moore in 1900, with rates up to 40% on estates exceeding $13.99 million in 2025. 1718, even humble family farms get eviscerated when land values spike, forcing fire sales to satisfy the IRS's greed. The government invests nothing in your property, yet demands a pound of flesh upon your death, robbing your children of their inheritance and mocking the Fifth Amendment's promise of property rights. We're not freeholders anymore. We're hostages, compelled to toil endlessly to hold on to what's ours, or face eviction into destitution. Nowhere does this infernal machine grind harder than on our farmers, the stoic guardians of America's breadbasket, now yoked like beasts of burden. In a despicable 1942 ruling of Wickard v. Filburn, the Supreme Court decreed that an Ohio farmer could be fined for growing wheat on his own damn land for personal use, claiming it affected interstate commerce under the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938. 1416, this perversion bloated the Commerce Clause into a totalitarian tentacle, regulating local acts if they substantially affect national markets. Farmers, you heroes of the heartland, are now slaves to federal whims. Quotas that cap your yields, subsidies that hook you on government dope, penalties that bankrupt your dreams. Dare to grow crops for your livestock without feeding the commercial beast? Pay up, you rebel, or watch your farm auction off. These fines are illegal taxes, pure extortion, forcing you into commerce or punishing your independence. As free Americans, we owe zero obligation to line the state's pockets. We're not slaves or indentured servants bound to generate profits for bureaucrats. The Constitution empowers oversight of commerce, not coercion into it or tribute for opting out. This is how screwed our nation has become. Self-reliance is criminalized, natural supply and demand warped, prices artificially inflated, family farms foreclosed in droves. You're herded into buying from corporate overlords, paying hidden taxes through gouged costs, all because the feds claim dominion over your soil. This violates every freedom. The right to property, to pursue happiness unmolested. We're trapped in their rigged system, forced to labor or perish, our liberties trampled under the boot of regulatory terror. If you think the government, judges, or Congress will hand back your chains, you're hallucinating. They're the pigs, squealing with glee as they stomp you flat and feast on your carcass. The architects of this apocalypse, activist judges, those unelected emperors in robes, legislating from the bench in defiance of Article I's clear mandate for Congress alone. They've conjured jurisprudence like dark magic, precedent and stare decisis binding us like chains, though it's mere interpretation, not law. 5 politicians, too cowardly to amend the Constitution, enlist these judicial hitmen to erode it under guises like public interest, justifying rights rapes from eminent domain thefts to due process desecrations under the 5th and 14th Amendments. Chevron deference, that 1984 abomination from Chevron U.S.A.V. Natural Resources Defense Council, empowered agencies to twist laws unchecked for 4 decades, until the Supreme Court acts it in 2024's Loper Bright Enterprises v. Raimondo. 2425, but the scars run deep. Years of unconstitutional edicts spawning more monstrosities, devastating ordinary folks who can't afford courtroom crusades. The government funds its assaults with our taxes, while we bleed dry fighting back. It takes decades to slay these dragons, letting harms metastasize and shred our nation's fabric. Even the presidency buckles. These rulings empower a deep state to sabotage commanders-in-chief defending our sovereignty. And the FBI, that secret police force was rammed down our throats in 1908 by Attorney General Charles Bonaparte under President Theodore Roosevelt. Despite Congress rejecting a national spy agency as akin to Europe's Gestapo. 1920 executive fiat birthed it. Funding followed, and by 1935, it was the FBI, a rogue behemoth spying on citizens, overstepping bounds, and embodying the very tyranny we fled. President Trump has been a fierce warrior against this deep state shadow, vowing to dismantle it and issuing executive orders in 2025 to end the weaponization of the federal government, including reforms to curb bias in intelligence agencies and install loyalists to root out corruption. 8/3/23 through initiatives like Project 2025 and allies like Russell Vought at the Office of Management and Budget, Trump has pushed to reform the federal workforce, eliminate duplicated functions, and end programs like DI that bloat bureaucracy, all in a bid to drain the swamp and restore accountability. 6/17/1925 yet. The entrenched powers fight back, underscoring the need for continued vigilance. And now, the tyrants strike at our core right to self-defense, cloaking their assaults in a phony veil of public interest. They strip gun rights from felons, even those who've never wielded a weapon in crime or never owned one at all, banning possession under federal laws like 18 U.S.C. Section 922G. They've made it a nightmare for law-abiding citizens to arm themselves, with endless hoops, background checks, and restrictions that criminals laugh at. Dangerous thugs snag guns through black markets, straw purchases, or theft, then unleash hell, robbing, raping, murdering, and terrorizing, while the disarmed suffer. Worse, under constructive possession doctrines, a felon's spouse or family can't even keep a firearm in a home without risking charges, as courts rule that mere access or control equates to possession. Entire households are left defenseless, easy prey in a world the government has made unsafe through its own meddling. In the past, when more Americans were armed, communities policed themselves. Intruders thought twice before breaking in, knowing justice could come swift and sure. But today, the data paint a complex picture. While some argue armed citizens deter crime, numerous studies show that states with higher gun ownership and laxer laws often suffer higher rates of gun homicides and violent crime, with the U.S. as a global outlier in firearm deaths. 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 yet. The debate rages. Stronger gun laws correlate with lower gun violence in some analyses, but the government's blanket restrictions ignore that criminals bypass them, leaving the law-abiding vulnerable. 7 ain't the real public interest. Ousting the politicians and judges who peddle these disarmament schemes, restoring our Second Amendment rights to make America safer through responsible, widespread armament, not nanny-state nonsense that empowers predators. This public interest farce extends to abominations like the sex offender registry, born from laws like Megan's Law and the Adam Walsh Act, promising safety but delivering only illusions and devastation. It hasn't lowered recidivism rates at all. Studies show mixed and no evidence of deterrence, with some even suggesting notification increases reoffending by isolating individuals and heightening stress. 20, 21, 25, 26, 27, 28 instead. It inflicts emotional and physical harm on families, sparking more crime from desperation among those who might never reoffend. Shockingly, it ensnares children as young as 10 or 14 in some states, juveniles exploring life, often victims themselves of learned behaviors or ignorance of the law, the very kids these laws claim to protect. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. These young souls face harassment, violence, disownment, suicide, and murder, all for a program that breeds harm, not good. Like every unconstitutional government scheme upheld under public interest, it violates rights and wrecks lives. The true public interest? Purging the judges who greenlight these atrocities with inferior case law, define the supreme authority of the Constitution. Those in the government know the reason for the Second Amendment. It's to fight tyranny, plain and simple. The Constitution spells it out. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That doesn't take political approval and isn't illegal. It's a constitutional obligation to protect our country, defend the Constitution from tyranny and preserve the free state. But the courts say otherwise, spewing rulings like useless words that no longer protect or defend the free state or the Constitution that keeps it free. Our founders weren't idiots. They armed the people as the ultimate check against oppression. Jefferson warned that arms are the last resort against government tyranny. Mason called disarming the people the path to enslavement. 1-6 Hamilton urged citizens to rush to arms if needed. 0. Yet judges have betrayed us. Carving exceptions in Heller, 2008, and Bruin, 2022, allowing bans on common arms like AR-15s, while upholding disarms for the dangerous. 16, 15, 18, 9, 17, their words are hollow, enabling the very tyranny they should crush. We don't need their permission. It's our duty to arm and stand ready. Remember why we ignited the revolution? Taxation without representation. Colonial taxes under Crown averaged a mere 1 to 1.5%, while Britons paid 5-7%, and we revolted over that indignity. 6 now? The average American shoulders an effective federal income tax rate of around 14.5%, with brackets from 10% to 37%. 20 factor in state and local levies, and the median household surrenders about 27.3% of its income to this voracious vortex. A staggering burden that dwarfs the colonial gripe. Bullshit. Unacceptable. This is highway robbery, a betrayal that would make King George blush. We're taxed into oblivion while our representatives lie, cheat, steal, and trample our rights with impunity. Sure, a scant few politicians cling to honor, battling the swamp, but as a horde, governors like Tony Evers, legislators, judges, they're a cabal of crooks. They no longer represent we the people. They've hijacked our ship, plundered our treasures, extinguished our freedoms. They've stolen our money for global giveaways, eroded our rights through judicial sorcery, and chained us to a system of servitude. This is a tyranny we were warned about, the slow strangulation of liberty under guise of safety and welfare. Enough. It's time to rise up, patriots, to storm the bastions of power with the unyielding spirit of 1776. Demand audits, slash spending, dismantle agencies, and hold these traitors accountable. Arm yourselves as the founders intended, train, and stand vigilant against tyranny. We won't whisper pleas, we'll thunder demands. President Trump is doing everything he can to combat this deep state menace, from executive orders ending federal weaponization to reforming agencies like the FBI and IRS. But even with our support, he stands alone against powerful, money-fueled forces that limit and undermine his efforts to restore our republic. 813-23 needs us to help push back through peaceful, lawful advocacy, exercising our free speech to expose tyranny in our government agencies and courts, voting out the corrupt, and supporting reforms that uphold the Constitution. We are the United States militia in the constitutional sense, citizens ready to defend our free state through civic engagement and unity at his side. For God, family, and the stars and stripes. Take back our country to the power of the people, or watch liberty fade. Liberty or death, America forever.